This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
The madness has begun because the men's major college basketball conference tournaments are getting underway this week, and we're here to break those down with Dr. Ed Feng, getting his read on the biggest conference tournaments, letting you know where he sees value at FanDuel Sportsbook, and talking about a couple of games that begin the week as well. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, joined here as mentioned by Dr. Ed Feng. Find his work at thepowerrank.com and check him out on Twitter at thepowerrank. Ed, it is a delight to get you back on the show here for today. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's March. I get to watch a lot of college basketball. You always send me a rundown for these shows, which is very kind. And the questions about North Carolina and Duke allowed me to spend some time this morning watching the game from Saturday, which was actually really insightful and actually a little bit strange. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, it's a wonderful month, and I'm blessed to have this life that I do.
Yeah, it's fun to get to really dig into meaningful games, get to watch some games that matter a lot, and get to watch some desperation at points as well. And this week is a fun one because of what it can do, not only for like just watching entertaining basketball in general, but also getting insights for next week with the overall bracket reveal. We're going to have a bracket breakdown this year, similar to what we've had in years past. Next Monday, we're going to have Ed on for that. And also Bennett Corcoran of Shot Quality. We had him on last year. The past couple years, actually, Bennett's been with us to break down the bracket. That'll be on Monday of next week, breaking down ways you want to fill out your bracket for your pools and things like that. We'll have some individual day breakdowns of games later on that week too. We're going to talk the women's bracket as well. So all right here in the Covering the Spread podcast feed, a lot of good stuff coming up there. So make sure to subscribe to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. And you can always, as always, find these shows on the FanDuel YouTube page and FanDuel TV Plus as well. Now, we're going to talk about the conference tournaments here in a second, but did want to pick your brain a bit on the top of the nation because we've seen UConn emerge a bit as a favorite, but it's still pretty even across the entire nation as far as which team is most likely to win the national championship. UConn is a favorite at plus 480. Houston is plus 650. Purdue plus 750. And because that, I haven't got to talk to you a whole lot about college basketball yet. I wanted to ask you, what do your numbers say about the top teams in the nation for this year so far?
I mean, FanDuel pretty much has this right. I mean, I have Connecticut and Houston at the top. I believe Connecticut is the most complete team in the nation. I'm really not surprised. They brought back Donovan Klingon, and I really liked Alex Caravan as a player. But honestly, it's been Tristan Newton, the point guard that transferred over last year. Possibly, the weakest starter that they had on that national championship team last year, but he's really emerged. It's really hard to poke holes at Connecticut. Houston is a great team. It's a little bit easier to poke holes on them because they can't really shoot the basketball. And shooting the basketball, last time I checked, is pretty important in terms of winning basketball games. But they're such a unique and elite defensive team. There's a lot of teams that play really good defense, like Tennessee, like Auburn, but no one quite does it on the level that Houston does. So I really do think those are the two primary contenders. And Purdue is a really interesting team. By far the best offense, or at least one of the best offenses in the nation in my numbers. And Zach Edey is a beast and really deserves to be called the best player in college basketball. I have a little bit of concerns about the surrounding cast, especially on the defensive side of the basketball, but they're a really good team. They could absolutely win this all. This looks about right. I mean, this looks very close to, if you could get behind my paywall, like what I would have for how these teams are ranked.
So Houston struggling offensively, Purdue struggling defensively. UConn is well-rounded, but Ed, as you said, the market kind of accounts for that. Plus 480 is a short number given the volatility we can't see in the tournament. It sounds like, based on what you're saying, despite the fact you like UConn most, you're not willing to bite at plus 480. Is that correct?
Yeah, probably not. And maybe that has a little bit of the fact that one of the games of UConn I watched was when Creighton absolutely thrashed them. It was, Creighton played really well. Their ball movement was excellent. They hit half of their threes. And But it also, like, I don't really think UConn played awful. I think they just got beat by a team that was really on their game. They were on the road. And you're going to have to play an almost perfect game against Connecticut or have them shoot poorly. You're going to have to play really well to beat them. Plus 480. I don't have any numbers up right now. I mean, I will after the field is set. I usually do. I probably a little bit later this week, I'll have some sample numbers based on some sample predicted field of 68s, but I don't yet. So yeah, I don't know. There could be value. I am looking at my FanDuel. I do have a Houston plus 900 ticket.
Okay.
So that is looking pretty good. I mean, Calvin Sampson he gets it done every year. You know what they're going to do? They're going to play crazy defense. They actually lost one of their best shot blockers, a guy who comes off the bench. I don't think he's coming back this season, JoJo Tugler, but it's Houston. They're going to be really good on the defensive side of the ball. So pretty happy to have that ticket.
All right. So Ed sitting on Houston 9-1, but seeing no value with where things stand right now in the national championship market. Now, fun timing for today, Ed, because sports betting just launched in North Carolina. So let's go back to that Duke UNC matchup you mentioned. What better timing could North Carolina have had than launching in this week specifically? Because it's a pretty fun battle at the top of the ACC for the conference tournament odds. Right now, UNC and Duke tied at plus 180 in the ACC. So, I mean, look at the ACC right now. Any lean for you between Duke and UNC and any other teams worth targeting in this market to you?
These are certainly the two best teams in the ACC, and the numbers reflect that. My numbers, no matter how you look at them, I have a number of different numbers that I look at, but no matter how you look at it, the numbers have Duke and North Carolina very close. The eyes actually kind of tell a different story. In the first half at Cameron Indoor, Duke looked terrible. They really got pushed around by a North Carolina team. Duke's defense was terrible. If you didn't look at the color of the jerseys, you would assume that they were playing in the Dean Dome because it looked like North Carolina was the team that was at home. North Carolina ended up winning the game. I think the margin did end up being a little bit closer. But so my process for kind of evaluating these teams is I try to watch a full half in two different games. And I usually try to catch the team on the road. So I was trying to evaluate both teams because both teams are pretty good. So normally this would be something that I would watch North Carolina on. I would have watched this game for North Carolina. I haven't had a chance to see much of Duke outside of this game. It would be interesting to see, how they do it kind of against a lesser opponent, maybe in the ACC semifinals or something like that. So I don't want to draw too many conclusions. I mean, they're clearly talented. They have probably three guys that are going the first round of the NBA draft. But North Carolina simply looks like a better team. They look like, when you look at their numbers, they're very good defensively. They kind of look like a less extreme version of Houston. Their defense is good. They're pretty tough. They don't shoot the ball well. But they're a good basketball team. Not really a primary national championship contender. They don't have the NBA talent that Duke does, but they're a pretty good basketball team. So certainly wouldn't be surprised if they went far. I would probably make North Carolina a little bit more of a favorite here than Duke. I think there's a reason that North Carolina, at least it certainly seemed from that half, there was a reason why North Carolina has won both of the games this year. And so maybe a little bit of value in North Carolina plus 180. I certainly think they should be more of a favorite than Duke.
All right. So right now, as you mentioned, plus 180 on UNC in this game. And I want to ask you about your process. You talked about watching games, trying to identify, watching them for at least two halves on the road and things like that. Is that a situation where when your numbers are close, you allow the eye test to break the tie? Do you allow the eye test to carry quite a bit of weight? How much do you allow what you see when you're watching these games to dictate what you do versus what your strict numbers are saying?
I mostly go with the numbers simply because I've done a lot of tests on them and I know how good they are at predicting the outcome of the tournament. I actually just looked back at the last 15 tournaments, and my team rankings are kind of the bare bones basics. It's on the free part of my site. It's margin of victory adjusted for strength of schedule with my algorithm. And the champion has actually been first or second in 9 out of the last 15 tournaments. So that's pretty good. And so I definitely lean towards the numbers, and I'm certainly not going to tell you Duke's soft, don't pick them, You know, like they're good. They have NBA talent. They shoot the ball well. But I do, you know, when I'm watching these games, I'm looking more for like floor and ceiling type arguments. So, you know, for example, like Tennessee's Dalton Connect, you're going to hear about this guy nonstop in March if these guys make a run because, you know, I think he was like 5'6" as a freshman in high school or whatever. And now he's 6'6". He's huge. Like he's a really strong, like he looks like an NBA wing already. And I mean, I actually haven't bet any of them, but I'm not sure that you can actually price Connect's points total too high. Yeah. Like he dropped 40 against Kentucky. So I saw a 20.5 maybe last weekend and it was up to 23.5, which I was like, sounds like a lot. And he dropped 40. Yeah. This guy's the real deal. And so that's the kind of stuff like I'm looking at, right? Like, does this guy look like a player that can carry a usually defensive program like Tennessee far in the tournament? And the answer is yes. Yeah. Like absolutely. And so, yeah, those are the type of things that I look for more, like, you know, what is the ceiling of this team given these players? You know, like what, so for Kansas, like, you know, a player like Kevin McCullough, who's been in and out of the lineup, he's kind of projected as a first round pick. He does not give me the same impression as Dalton Connect. He's just another dude. So those are the types of things I look for. And like, I also look for stuff. It's also the basis of kind of handicapping like player props, which has been fun. And I've been doing that in my 5 Nuggets newsletter. And I just, you know, when you watch a guy, you'd be like, oh, this guy's legit, you know, or you're like, this guy kind of sucks. So that definitely affects, because I don't really have a model for player points. Yeah. So I just kind of do it a little bit more by looking at markets and looking at season-long stats and whether usage is higher or lower, so on and so forth. But a big part of that is just evaluating the players and what they look like on the floor.
I think eye test for ceiling makes a lot of sense because you can kind of identify untapped potential, which is something that may not be baked into the numbers. So I think that using it for that way makes a lot of sense. So, and numbers wise, Duke and UNC pretty close for Ed, but eye test does say potential value in UNC plus 180 right now to win the ACC. Let's go to the Big Ten right now. Of course, a conference Ed knows very well. Purdue, even money to win the Big Ten tournament right now. Illinois is 3-1, and then there's a big drop off after that. So some two obvious favorites here, Ed. Any value for you in the Big Ten with where things stand right now?
Honestly, not. Jim, you mentioned that I know this conference, and most years that's the case. That's not the case this season. I've seen Purdue play a couple of times. The Michigan Wolverines are not very good at the game of basketball and have some very interesting decisions about the future of the program. I don't really know much about this Illinois program because like they kind of fall outside the range of teams that could potentially win the tournament. And so it's kind of hard, and the statistics are a little bit strange, and like some of their top players are not making a lot of their threes, but have like kind of absurdly high free throw percentages, which if you look at correlations really isn't supposed to happen. Those things are supposed to be pretty correlated. I mean, I think Purdue is clearly the best team. They're third in my rankings, and they're the only team inside the top 10, and they're clearly the best team. Michigan State's an interesting one. Avery Egros talked about them on my podcast, potentially a team with value, a team that started the season in the top 5 or 6 of the preseason AP poll, which lets you know that they do have talent. They do have a high upside. So that was his call on the Football Analytics show last week. And yeah, I certainly trust him with his college basketball analysis.
Someone is betting Northwestern. They were 20. They're now 17-1. Ed, can you tell me the last time the Northwestern won the Big Ten men's college basketball tournament?
Never.
1933. It has been 91 years.
That's basically never.
Yeah.
I'm going to call
pre-World War II
on that one.
We were in the thick of the Great Depression the last time that they won the Big Ten men's tournament. But someone thinks that they've got a chance. They were 20. They're not 17. I, of course, can't bet that here in Illinois. I would not bet that given their injury situation right now, even if I could. But hey, somebody out there has faith, and that somebody is not me. So Big Ten should be a fun one to watch. Purdue does seem somewhat vulnerable at times if you are able to properly contain Edey and force the rest of the team to step up. But staying away from that one personally. I agree with you where it's a weird conference, and I think it's kind of a down conference this year as well. So more than happy personally to stay away from that one. Let's talk Big East. Right now, UConn, the clear favorite, of course. You like them as the best team in the nation. They're minus 150 to win the Big East, but hey, Creighton is lurking there, plus 390. They've done it once against UConn already. So any value for you in the Big East right now?
Probably not. I absolutely think UConn is the most complete team in the nation. One thing that kind of can really tip the odds in this conference is Tyler Kolek. He is the guard for Marquette. He has not played the last 3 games with an injury. He's supposed to come back in the Big East tournament, and the odds will change if the odds should change if he's coming back. He's an elite player, and Marquette's a team with a lot of upside. So there's potential value in Marquette plus 600 if he comes back and can be the player that we all know that he can be. Creighton's an interesting team too. The only game I've seen them play was when they thrashed UConn, and so they certainly have a pretty high ceiling. It's not a team I otherwise love all that much, but they are in the top 10 of my numbers. So yeah, with these conference tournaments, like last year. UConn, that UConn team that dominated their way to the NCAA tournament championship, they lost to Marquette in this tournament. So anything can happen. But I think that if you're going to find value in this, it's probably somewhere with how Tyler Kolek's injury is going to impact this tournament.
Yeah. The implied odds for UConn are at 60% right now. And like you said, can be a pretty volatile format with the way things work. They have their eyes set on a larger prize, obviously, as well. So good spot to stay away from with the Big East. A lot of other conference tournaments markets posted. Ed, anywhere else you're seeing value right now at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Not really with more of the conference tournaments. I'm a little bit more focused on the big dance at this point. Yeah.
The SEC, interesting at least. Tennessee plus 180, Auburn plus 240, Kentucky 4-1, Alabama 5-1. You were saying before we came on air that this conference is a deep one and a strong one. Yeah. Obviously, no betting value for you, but I want to get your overall read on the SEC and where things stand right now. How are you feeling about them entering the conference tournament?
I love watching SEC teams play. Like there's so many interesting teams. Tennessee's always been not always, but over the last 5 years under Rick Barnes, they've been a really good defensive team. And now all of a sudden you're putting an NBA wing on their team and Dalton Connect. And he, as I mentioned before, is completely legit. And I can see them absolutely making a deep run in this tournament. Auburn's a team that started the season outside the preseason top AP poll top 25. So not a team that people had a lot of hopes for, but it's Bruce Pearl, and you're going to get a lot on the defensive side of the ball there. Bruce Pearl's a great coach, and Janai Broome is a big that has really improved his game since last year. He's really improved his game. Had a couple, had an over on his player points in the newsletter. I really like him as a player. I think he's got a pretty good supporting cast. Kentucky. So that's interesting that Kentucky has higher odds than Alabama. Alabama is who Alabama always is. They jack up a lot of threes. Don't have the star power that they've had in past years. But Kentucky is just loaded, absolutely loaded with talent, NBA talent up and down the roster. They have a guy Reed Shepherd that doesn't even start and is considered a lottery pick. I have no idea why he doesn't start. But they're a fascinating wild card in the NCAA tournament. Like, I think how they would match up against Purdue is something that, seeing them in a regional final, seeing that type of game in a regional final would be really, really fascinating. So just a lot of I think those top 4 teams all are really interesting. They're really interesting to break down and project them into the NCAA tournament. I'm going to be watching a lot of these games because I'm going to hopefully try to pick up more things about these teams because it's, I guess you could say, there are 4 teams that I don't think numbers tell the whole story about them.
Yeah.
It just makes the conference really interesting.
So SEC should be fun. ACC should be fun as well. Maybe we'll learn some more about the Big Ten teams beyond Purdue and Illinois. So it should be a fun week overall. We're going to talk about some individual games later on this week. Aiden Cotter joining us on Wednesday at FanDuel Research and Riley Thomas on Friday, talking about games they like across those days. Ed, have you been able to find any value yet for individual games this week, or haven't dug into that quite yet?
I haven't dug into it, and I probably won't. I kind of want to stick with player props.
Yeah,
I think they're a little bit easier to beat, and honestly, in a lot of places, I think I would honestly say since I've been looking at this market the past couple of weeks, it's honestly sharper than I expected.
Yeah,
but it's so vast that you're not going to get everything right. Like the books are not going to get everything possibly right, and it doesn't even take a model to kind of find some value, and it's fun. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with the way I prep for the tournament anyways. So most of my time is going to be focused on player props and like the major ones like points.
They can't get everything right approach is true for college basketball for like sides and totals, like when we're looking at like all the games available. But then when you make that even more granular with player props, I feel like that even makes it, like I said, it's sharper than you thought it might be. But if you're looking for markets that don't have as many eyes on them as you would typically get, I think that's where you're most likely to find it.
For sure. And I'm interested how that might change as we get in the NCAA tournament, because now we're going to have a ton of eyes. But I just think maybe that is going to be a different kind of value, right?
Sure.
Because now you're looking for guys who like go off, like role players that go off for big games in the first weekend of the tournament, and then just get some player points that are way too high heading into the Sweet 16, right? I mean, that's definitely what I'm looking for into the tournament, as there's more eyes, as there's more public money going on. Whereas before, it was kind of more like, this book missed this injury information, right?
Right.
So, I think it's going to change, and I'm just interested to see what kind of value I can dig up.
Excited to follow you along for the ride as well. That is Dr. Ed Feng. Check him out on Twitter at The Power Rank. Find his work at thepowerrank.com. Ed, what is going on for you this week and the coming weeks over at The Power Rank?
So many things. So firstly, I did a really fun thing, and actually an illegal thing. I took a chapter of Woj's book, The Miracle of St. Anthony's, which I think is personally the best sports book I've ever read. And I read the chapter about Dan Hurley on my podcast. It was a lot of fun to make. The chapter is amazing to kind of get his story and how he grew up in the shadow of his brother Bobby, and the shadow of his father his father Bob, who the book is about, because he's like an absolute high school coaching legend. It's a great book, so check that out at the Football Analytics Show. This week, the Bracket Wisdom series starts. So it's a daily podcast series. Each episode is about 10 minutes. I do some episodes. Edward Egros does some episodes. And the goal is to get you ready to win your March Madness pool. So check that out at the Football Analytics Show. The first episode should drop tomorrow morning. And then, a lot bracket advice. I do a lot of work at the site for how you can win your pool. And a lot of that is analyzing the top teams through both numbers and watching the games. A lot of that is going on as well. Members get access to all of that. Actually, if you want to take this opportunity to become a member, I'm actually mailing a copy of Interception to all new members these days as a bonus. So you can check out that, and you get all my March Madness stuff, which includes the bracket advice and then also player props through the tournament. So you can check that out at thepowerrank.net.
With props now, even better. Player props, but also like physical props with the book. So I love to see that. Yeah. Interception, an awesome book. I saw you had Ed on. Do you have Matthew as well, or just Ed on your podcast?
Could not get Matthew on. So
okay. But Ed Miller, who you heard on this show, leading Super Bowl, we talked live betting with him. Ed Miller was on Ed's show as well, Football Analytics Show, a couple weeks back, and that's an evergreen kind of show. So would recommend checking that one out. Football Analytics Show for that, plus the podcast with Edward Egros. Too many Eds to keep track of at this point. But then also all the bracket advice for next week. Go to thepowerrank.com for that. But also check out Ed here on Covering the Spread next Monday with Bennett Corcoran. Ed, we'll talk to you then, and enjoy the basketball until that time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll talk to you then.
Alrighty. Find Ed on Twitter at the Power Rank. Excited to get him back here on the show next week as well to break down all the advice you need to win your bracket. We're going to go through recommendations from last week here on the show in just 1 second. But first, FanDuel's putting the ball in your court for the rest of the NBA season because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Bet on the NBA with a wide range of bet types, including quick bets, live same-game parlays, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, hello, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and Vermont. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777. Or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9 with it in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700. Visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050. For 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Before we wrap up, let's recap recommendations from last week here on the show, beginning with Austin Cass, who is on here to talk EPL Match Week 28. Check out Austin on Twitter at Austin Cass and find his work at FanDuel Research. The first one for Austin was Aston Villa and Tottenham over 3.5 goals. That was at -110, and it was a 4-0 win for Tottenham. So Tottenham putting up 4 all by themselves to win this one over 3.5 goals, -110 to get a winner for Austin there. Second one was in the Man City versus Liverpool matchup. He liked the Man City money line at +125, and Man City did get up 1-0 early on this match, but Liverpool got the equalizer later, and that did finish as a 1-1 draw. So no win there on the Man City money line. Austin pulled a rabbit out of his hat. He had Sheffield United to tie or to win or draw at +230 against Bournemouth, and Sheffield United got a draw. They got themselves a point, 2-2, the final score there against Bournemouth. So that one did cash at +230 for Sheffield United in the double chance market. Final one was Pedro Neto to score or assist at +130. Neto did start this match, did not finish it, got subbed out late, and was not involved in the scoring for this one. So no win there, but a 2-2 week for Austin, including a win at +230 for Sheffield United. Check out Austin on Twitter at Austin Cass. We had Austin Swaim on to preview UFC 299, O'Malley versus Vera. Check out Austin on Twitter at ASwaim3. Find his UFC work every Friday on the Heat Check over on the FanDuel Research podcast feed. In the main event, Austin had Sean O'Malley to win by knockout at +250, and then O'Malley versus Vera to not go the distance at -106. Kind of an either-or situation. If you liked, if you wanted to get Vera in the mix, you could go that one, or go with the straight one of the O'Malley by knockout +250. But that did go the distance. O'Malley got the win by unanimous decision there, so no early decision there, and no knockout for O'Malley, so no win there. Austin did get a win, though, in Piotr Jan. The money line for Jan was -124. Jan got the win there, so catch that one at -124. Jan Kudilaba had the money line at -134. Kudilaba could not get the win, though, so no win there at -134. Another one for Austin was Burns taking on Della Maddalena. That bet was for that to go to the distance, but Della Maddalena won that one by knockout. So no win there at +150. Final one was Ole Shaychek by knockout at +260. Pereira won that one by submission. So no win there, but as always, Austin is back with you once again for the next UFC event. Find him on the Heat Check every Friday, breaking down that week's UFC card on the FanDuel Research podcast feed, and find Austin on Twitter at ASwaim3. For me in NASCAR and Formula One, on the Formula One side of things, rough week for cars because I had two recommendations, and both cars are the two cars that crashed across the weekend. First one was Joe Guan Yu. That happened in practice in FP3, put it in the wall. I had him at top 10 at plus 410. Joe crashed and then couldn't get a lap in during qualifying, started back in 20th. He had an okay run, honestly. The speed for him was fine. Used some alternate strategy, but then have a very long pit stop. He wouldn't have finished top 10 regardless, but couldn't get that one there. Other one was Lance Stroll, top 6 at plus 750. Felt okay about this one. Stroll had okay pace in practice. His teammate Fernando Alonso qualified 4th. So Aston Martin's speed is not bad this weekend, but Lance Stroll is not the best driver on the planet, and he made a very stupid mistake and crashed. So did not get that one at plus 750. That's what happens when you bet on Lance Stroll, but that's also why his odds tend to be decently favorable, and I show a value a lot of times, but no win there for F1. On the NASCAR side of things, for the Cup Series, I had Brad Keselowski in a ladder situation where I wanted to bid on the top 10 at even money, and then a bid on him to win at 25-1. And Keselowski didn't start off great, but really ran well towards the end of this race and finished 5th. So Keselowski got the cash in the top 10. Depending how you scaled, that should have profited too, as long as you didn't put equal amount on the win of 25-1. But I felt okay about this. Toyota was definitely faster than Ford, so 25-1, not the best number, but Keselowski working his way forward throughout the day, using good strategy, had a pretty good car, so cash the top 10 at even money. In the Xfinity Series, I had Eric Almirola to win at 9-1. Almirola ran really well the entire day. He was running in 3rd for a good chunk of it. I thought I had a really good chance to win that race, challenging his teammate Chandler Smith and Justin Allgaier, but then had a bad pit stop towards the end of the race. And right after that, there was a crash in front of him between his teammates, and Almirola got caught up in it, didn't finish. So I think the process was probably there for Almirola 9-1, but not the result I wanted. So pretty tough run so far in Xfinity with a lot of close calls that could have potentially won that have not done so yet. So no one there for Almirola, but I do feel okay about the process that led me to that bet. That's all that we got here for today on Covering the Spread. Big thank you once again to Dr. Ed Feng. Find his work on Twitter at the Power Rank. Check him out at thepowerrank.com as well. I am back with you once again tomorrow. We're going to talk about NFL free agency. As we're recording here, Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta, it sounds like, Saquon Barkley to the Eagles. A lot of other big stuff to discuss. We'll talk about what it means as far as win totals go, divisional markets, and much more. Breakdown of that coming tomorrow here on Covering the Spread. To get that as it is posted, make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on the FanDuel YouTube page and FanDuel TV Plus. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or a thumbs up over on YouTube as well. If you got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can also find FanDuel Research on Twitter at FanDuel Research. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your bets across Monday. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down NFL free agency. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.